This episode of Beer with Nat is brought to you by me. Hey everyone, Nat here. I don't normally run ads on the podcast, but this season I've got my own shameless plug. I wrote a book. Available on March 19th in the UK and April 28th in the US, Beer, Taste the Evolution in 50 Styles is a taster's guide through the history of beer. To learn more and pre-order your copy, visit beerwithnat.com/book. Okay, time for the show. Welcome back to Beer with Nat. On every episode, I share a beer and a chat with people who do what they love for a living. They work in the beer industry. Today's guest is Alex White, brewer at London Fields Brewery. Before Alex started brewing beer, she used to sell it, working as a sales rep for Carlsberg's House of Beers. But before all that, she was a chef. From her time as a chef to beer sales, then brewing, you'll hear about Alex's experiences in each role and her grand plan for what she aims to do with the knowledge she's gained along the way. We also talk about what it was like growing up in Australia, how she got into beer, and what she enjoys most about being a part of the beer industry. Here she is.
I bought the London Fields Sisters are brewing it, so it's the passion fruit sour that we're really proud of. I was actually off sick when Talf brewed this, and Kath was away, but we managed the beer after. But yeah, it's a 0.5% passion fruit sour. It's got about 15% passion fruit puree in it.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to trying this.
It's gonna be tasty.
Yeah, because I remember my very first episode with Jaga, I had her passion fruit gosa, and it had loads of passion fruit in it as well.
Nice.
And that tasted delicious.
This is probably... Here we go.
Lovely, thank you. And that is actually a really good point. As you said, you weren't necessarily there on the brew day, but to think the life of a beer and what it takes to make a beer, it's so much more than just that one day.
They sit in the cellar for a while, so depending on the style of beer, yeah. This one actually, so we Telfrin actually designed a custom sour tank at our London Fields Brewery, and yeah, so it doesn't hold up the process of going into the cellar or anything. It can stay there to sour, and then we pasteurize it because it's got a steam jacket, and then we can transfer it, which is actually what they're going to be doing tonight. So.
Oh, okay. So are you making more of this or another sour?
A different sour. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Come on. There we go. It smells amazing.
We drink this at the brewery really regularly, actually.
Yeah, it's just like a soda during the day. Yeah, I can imagine. It's got that tartness that kind of hurts my face, but in a really good way. Yeah. The way that you're like, I'm smiling.
One. Yeah, the initial one that comes with the back of your chin, and then it sort of...
Yeah, I'm just going to keep smiling, I think, because it's just like gets that little pucker, but it's definitely got all of that passion fruit. And this is only 0.5% alcohol.
0.5%, yeah.
Nice.
So we've brewed this especially for January, everyone does dry January. And actually, a lot of people are training for the marathon as well, so they're cutting their drinking back. So it's nice to still have something you can drink.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Isn't a 12% Baltic porter.
That's what we're working our way up to.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how strong it was. Dang.
It's a big beer.
Okay, so we'll have a little more of this and then we'll move over to that one after a few questions. Okay, so we've mentioned a bit where you work, which is London Fields Brewery, and you were a brewer there, but you actually got your start in sales with House of Beers, which is the Carlsberg craft and specialty arm, and that was in late 2016 when you got started?
That was November 2016, yeah.
Okay, and so we'll talk about what you're doing now as a brewer, and then you can tell your story as to how you worked into that role from sales.
Yep.
So what is the day in the life like of a production brewer? At London Fields.
I get this so much actually. So I'm the least experienced of the three of us. So Telfrin's the head brewer, Kath is the senior brewer, and I'm just the brewer.
Learning as you go. Yeah. Exactly.
So I spend most of my time in the cellar on the cold side, and I check the gravities, the pH. I'm working my way up to packaging. I can now package a whole tank. Well, if I can keg a whole tank, which
amazing.
I started 6 months ago, so it was a pretty nice achievement to be able to do that. I still get a bit nervous, but I like to do things properly. So centrifuging as well. So we basically CIP everything. So we clean all of the equipment and we sterilize it before any beer touches it, and then you need to purge tanks with CO2 as well, so oxygen doesn't destroy it. And there's a lot of cleaning, but I mean, it's just like I said, from a chef background, so everything does need to be clean. And if I see something, actually, we're all like really similar, but if we see something that's dirty or shouldn't be there, we'll tackle it straight away, because it's a similar process to making food. You know, everything needs to be quite clean, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So just before we started talking, I didn't know that you had a chef background, so we'll dig into that a little bit more and talk about some of those similarities. But it's funny because when I first got into beer, people used to always say being a brewer is like being a glorified custodian. Like, it is so much about cleaning.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people maybe don't realize it sounds glamorous, but there's a lot more involved.
Yeah. So Telfrin actually tried to, when I was doing my sales role, I was pretty set on, I'm going to be moving into beer. I really want it to be here. Like, you know, is there any advice or anything you can give me? And he said, go see Kath. And she was working at a different brewery at the time, and go do some sort of work experience. And I went over and just basically did a packaging day, and we kegged some cask beer. That was
oh wow. And you don't do cask at London Fields,
no, we
correct?
don't,
Okay,
no.
so this was a different experience than what's in your day-to-day
and
now.
I don't drink that much cask either, just because I've had not very good experiences with it. So I've had good, but like overall I just prefer to stick to other styles. Like, well, without being snobby.
I imagine that, you know, you don't have much of it at home.
No,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
it's when you're not used to it.
Yeah, it floats around. There's a few people getting into it, but it's not very common.
Yeah.
Well, it might be now. I haven't lived there for a long time, so.
So I take it you don't miss the process of filling the casks that you experienced that day. You're happy to stick to kegs and cans.
I was really nervous. Like, I didn't want to. I spilled some beer, and everyone was like, "It's okay. It's gonna go in."
You know? And you're like, "How do I get it back in?"
I was like, "Oh God, oh, it's so wasteful." And they're like, "It's okay. It's actually better to overfill than underfill." And I was like, oh, "What am I doing?" I had like all these panic moments that like really seem so rookie now, but it's still. I'm like, oh. Yeah, I'm still learning.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that because Telfer was trying to prepare me basically. And he said, the more experience you have, you know, the better. And he was kind of like, it isn't as glamorous as what you think. Like, maybe you should sort of ease into it.
See a little bit more of this before you decide to jump into it.
I don't know, I'm from the country, and
that didn't sway you otherwise.
Chefing background, I was like, yeah, this is better than sitting at a laptop trying to organize deliveries, you know. So.
It's a very good point. And thinking about cooking food, you know, there's so much effort that goes into the making it, the cleaning up of it, and the enjoyment of it is such a small part. That maybe that is a good way to think about beer. It takes a lot of time to make it. A lot of time to clean up after it.
There's so much effort. Like, it's like when you cook food and you serve it, and then it's sort of, if someone is like catering, I guess, if someone was going to take that, you want to make sure that it gets to the customer right, and they have the good experience, and it's like how it's intended to be served is how it should be, you know, experienced. And you want the same with beer. There's so many factors in the way that you make beer, and you have kind of all these like procedures in place to make sure that protect integrity basically. And when it doesn't get to the customer the way it's supposed to, it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
Really, especially now working in the brewery, it's like, you know,
now
really
you've got
precious.
Even more of an understanding of how it's made and a personal investment in it.
And I get really annoyed at like, you know, not a bar maintaining their lines, for instance, or having out-of-date beers in their fridge.
Yeah, right, because then it reflects poorly on you as the brewer or the brewery.
It's not good for anybody, for the customer, for the bar, for the brewer, like for the brewery. It's not good.
It's interesting because I wanted to ask you, as a brewer, it seems that there are lots of things that you've picked up in the sales world that has influenced how you think about sales now.
I'm probably very annoying to my colleagues because I have that experience, and I kind of don't have as much patience as I probably would if I didn't have the experience. So I'm kind of like, oh, well, go here or go there or try this, or is there an event, or, you know, I kind of...
You understand the bigger picture a little bit more than if you were just in the brew house and you hadn't seen where the beer ends up or how to market it. Yeah,
and on the flip side, you see how hard it is sometimes. Like, especially in January, if you don't have an alcohol-free beer, no one wants to talk to you. Or when I first started at House of Beers, I had a lot of people... I got told to F off when I walked into one of the first craft beer bars, and I was like,
Oh my goodness.
I'm from a different country in a new industry and everyone's so mean. I was like, what is going on?
Was that because House of Beers is part of Carlsberg and they felt that they didn't want that bigger brand presence?
There was a really hard no on Carlsberg, and even though we were selling Brooklyn Brewery, like my responsibility is mainly Brooklyn in the craft and premium accounts, selling because everyone hated Carlsberg, and it took a really long time to sort of get people to actually like even
engage with you on a human level.
Yeah.
I think that's the frustrating thing. They reject you as a brand, and you're like, but I'm a person. I'm not the brand.
Person.
Yeah,
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
just hear me out or try the beers or that sort of thing.
It was a bit difficult at the start, but
okay, so let's go to the start.
So I'm here,
so November 2016, you apply for this job at House of Beers. Where did the inspiration come from to get into beer sales?
So I was working as a chef at the time. My lease was running out. I left my job because there was a member of staff that was bullying two other female members.
Oh wow!
And I didn't really want to stand for it. I said, you need to do something about this. All these complaints have come through. It wasn't dealt with in the right manner. So I said, I'm not going to work here. And the girls were really disappointed with that. Like I really wanted to help them, but I didn't want to.
Tried.
Yeah, I didn't. I just don't. I don't like any kind of bullying or anything like that. So. Especially in the work, like it's not acceptable anywhere, but especially in the workplace. So I left my house and I went to Portugal for 3 weeks with my friend and had a holiday. And I was homebrewing at the time. I took a homebrew class. I think it was at Crate, would have been 4 or 5 years ago now. So I had some beer stashed around the house, and my friend and flatmate, she knew my boss, my ex-boss Craig. And he was like, we're starting a premium and craft team with Carlsberg. Do you know anyone that's into beer? And she was like, oh, my flatmate is actually
she's a home brewer. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, sure. So I did a phone interview, and it was the first time I've actually got nervous in an interview setting. That so much so that I didn't speak at all.
Oh my goodness.
It was, and I know Craig will, if he heard this, he'll just be laughing. He'll be like, yep. She didn't say a word. I was just so nervous because I really wanted the job.
Yeah,
I was like, this is really different. This is, I could do this, So, that was a bit lucky, I guess. But,
yeah, right. It seemed like the right timing.
Yeah.
And how were you able to convince them to take on a sales role, considering you had been a chef previously? Had you done some sales that I didn't know about before that?
No.
This was all totally new.
No, he was recruiting people from different backgrounds. Like he had a few members that had sales roles, had worked in beer, hadn't worked in beer, had worked in the cocktail industry.
Yeah, right. You've got the hospitality experience.
Yeah. And he was like, that'd be really interesting to have food and everything. And I was like, Craig, I'm not corporate. I'm not corporate, right? And he was like, that's perfect. That's exactly why I want to hire you. So he's like, you can approach people that, regular or traditional sales people couldn't.
Yeah, right. You might think about it in a different way, and then of course you can learn from the more experienced sales folks on the team, but then they can learn from you as to what you bring to the table that's different.
I also think when I was managing a bar in Melbourne, I always think that I got my karma when I first started in the sales role, because I had so many people that came in on Friday afternoon or Thursday night prepping or just doing staff training or a stock take on a Monday, and I'm like, I don't have time to talk to you. I don't have time to talk to you. Leave the beer and get out, so I got my karma.
Wow, yeah, you've been on all sides of this industry now. Behind the bar, dealing with the sales rep, being the sales rep, and now being the person making the beer.
Yeah, and in the kitchen,
And in the kitchen, exactly.
That's my plan.
Yeah. So, what was that sales role like? You mentioned a few of the challenges that you bumped into, but let's talk about some of the highlights. So, sales was new to you. So, what skills did you end up bringing to the table? What did you take away from that role? What did you enjoy about it?
I think the biggest thing, 100%, is the people that you meet, because I've had so many different experiences that if I was stuck in a kitchen, I would never have had. We got to fly to Norway and brew beer. When I started at House of Beers, they flew us to Brooklyn, and we hung out with the Brooklyn crew.
Oh my goodness, wow.
Yeah, Even I got invited to a really small like niche kind of festival in Norway it's the Porter and Stout Festival, and they just like have a local, everyone brings food and everyone brings wine and a lot of beer is there, and I got asked to do a chocolate pairing, and actually this is where this beer, when they first released the beer, and I bought that along, and we did a chocolate and beer pairing, and then like a women in beer night as well. So you get a lot of opportunities, and the people that you meet are incredible, like incredible.
And when you were first getting into beer then, did you think you wanted to work your way up to being a brewer? Was this kind of a foot in the door and I want to be a brewer? Or learning more about beer through the sales side of things, you thought, oh, I don't want to be selling it, I want to be making it?
Yeah.
Where did the inspiration come from to pursue the path you're on now?
I actually want to open eventually a brew pub. I've never wanted to own a venue, but I've wanted to run it like it is my own, and have a charity on the side of that kind of, well, works out for like kind of simultaneously works. And the last thing that I need, I've got experience in a lot of different areas in hospitality, and the only thing that I don't have experience in was brewing. And I was like, well, it just kind of makes sense.
I work for a brewery.
Yeah. I was like, I need this experience because long term, this is what I want to do. So I don't ever really want to do a job or ask someone else to do a job or not know what I'm talking about. So it's really, I rather, you can read stuff, or like, you could be a food writer or anything, not to put anyone down that is like, does that for a living, but I wanted to get first-hand experience in every area of it. So
wow, you've been playing the long game.
Yeah.
Creating, piecing together all the different bits of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Wow. So what, we'll come back onto that vision in a bit, but what was that conversation like with your bosses and your team at Carlsberg to say, I would like to be making this beer instead of selling it?
So I had a really good, so I mentioned Craig before, he was my boss at the time. He was super supportive. I said that I'm not going to be doing this forever. I want to start moving into brewing. And he put me on the Carlsberg sensory training, and then he put me on I applied to do my GCB.
Which is the General Certificate in Brewing at the Institute of Brewing and Distilling,
Yes.
so a good place to start.
Yep, I think it was really good. I actually found it more scientifically interesting than like Cicerone, for example.
Yeah, they're very different subject areas, because we did our GCB on the same day. Is that right? Yeah. Well, that was torturous. So it's just loads of home study, and they give you all the materials, and very scientific about every step of the brewing process.
It was a lot more. It was a lot more than I thought, actually, and it's good to actually go back and read it, because you can sort of apply it, because you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know what that is, and now you're like, oh yeah, I did that the other day.
So it was a really helpful foundation for practice.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So another friend of mine who works was working in a local brewery. He said, if you want to show that you're serious, like, I would take someone on, like, if they're on their way to get their GCB, as opposed to they didn't have and they just wanted experience. So if you actually sort of show that you're serious about it, like I pested Talfrin as well. So there was a lot of different factors. Like I told my boss, and he was pretty happy to support it. He was like, okay, we'll get you the certificates. I'll facilitate this. And then I pested Talfrin. I remember just saying, you'll only regret it a little bit. Like, I will work really hard if you give me this job. And I think I've been doing that so far. So.
And why was that? Because then you were in London, and this is the main London brewery.
Yeah.
Which is London Fields. Yeah. So this was the door to go knocking on, basically.
It was my first door to knock on, because I was doing sales for them as well. So as a part of House of Beers, I was doing Brooklyn, Mel, Peretti, London Fields, and a few other like smaller brands. So I was like, well, got a connection.
I know your beers already, so let me just come see how you make them, and then start making them.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was a natural progression, and it's great to hear you had the support as well from the team behind you.
Yeah, it was. They've been, unbelievable like allies.
That's
definitely.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really they're not so common to find some days, but yeah, it's when you find them, they're like they're really nice.
You've got some champions at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the unexpected challenges you faced going into brewing? And then what are some of the sort of fascinating discoveries that you didn't read about, or perhaps you read about and it came to light in a new way once you were in the brewery?
Challenges for the brewery, I thought and still think that because everything's under pressure, everything's going to blow up, or...
I have that as well, just with canisters of CO2 at bars. Yeah. I'm like, are you sure that's safe? I've got those paranoias as well.
Also, Kath showed me a video of a reverse vacuum of a truck. So basically, if you clean a tank too quickly, if you put caustic into a tank that's just had beer in it,
implode.
Yeah. So she showed me a video of that traumatized me.
Oh dear, Kath, what are you doing?
I've spent every day trying not to do that. Yeah,
So workplace health and safety is paramount to you.
Just because I think because there's a lot more machinery. So in the kitchens, you're a bit more manual, and it's basically just bigger versions of stuff that you've used before. And this is all completely foreign. This is like a lot of equipment, a kegging machine. I've never just come across a kegging machine and be like, sure. So it was overwhelming trying to learn everything all at once. So yeah, I'm getting a lot more comfortable now. But yeah, the challenges, I guess, are health and safety. I'm just really paranoid about it.
Yeah.
So not that it's going to happen, like everyone supervises each other, but I'm still like, oh, what if, So.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a worry like always thinking to the worst extreme of something. Yeah.
It doesn't help that you get shown those videos.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Now I know what it looks like.
Forklift trip, falling over. It's...
Brewing, but it is, as you said, very safe. We're just the type of people to think about the scary things that can potentially come out of it.
But it's good to have the fear, because then if you've got the fear straight away, you're a little bit more careful.
You're not going to slip up. Yeah.
If you sort of think you know what you're doing, I read this book. Yeah.
Boom, there goes the FB in on itself.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the good stuff then. What's the best bit of the job that you've discovered so far?
I love it. I really love it. Like, you will always learn. You'll never stop learning. Even when you think you've mastered something, there's just like...
The next level.
It just keeps going. It's interesting. So there's a lot of different things, like just from even learning how to clean and sanitize to packaging. Even, if you get bored or, in your off time, you can read a book about, the scientific side of yeast, and, it's really cool.
You can be a geek about it. There's always something to learn.
You can.
So you are primarily focused on work in the cellar, as you said, so making sure that the fermentation is progressing the way that it should. So are you hitting the gravity? So is the sugar being used up? And are you hitting the right pH? Those sorts of things. So the next level then for you is packaging.
And
then you would move on to brewing. Is that the progression? So you've dabbled in bits.
Yeah. Every brewery is different, but that's kind of what it's looking like, yeah.
And is that what you want to see through then? Make sure you can go through the full process?
Yeah, I'm personally, just because of the way I am, I don't want to go straight into brewing, because we've got a really automated kit. It's very sophisticated, and it's a lot of computer.
And like you said, you didn't want to be behind a computer. That's why you got into brewing in the first place.
Moving up to packaging to brewing, Talf actually said this year I'll probably be brewing solo on that kit.
Amazing.
Yeah, so...
That's something exciting to work towards.
It is. I want to just sort of learn everything and be really comfortable, and then sort of move on my
there's no rush
kind of person. So.
Yeah, right. You've got your ultimate goal, but you want to get there and know what you're doing instead of just rushing to the end.
Yeah.
And what are some of the other things then from your sales experience that are in your mind as you're brewing? Are you trying to advise on what styles you think will sell well or anything like that?
We were sort of set up to be a little bit more creative, but at the same time you need to have it accessible. You need to be able to sell it. There's no point making a really amazing beer.
Constant 12% beers with loads of flavors. If you can't drink it all the time.
You need to be able to sell it, and it's also really nice to have a beer and people drink it and they're like, this is really good, it's a really nice feeling. So
it's mostly about having a well-rounded portfolio.
Yeah, and getting feedback from sales reps are one of your biggest assets to a business, especially brewing, because they're on the ground. They can walk into a bar and they can say, oh, you don't have a wheat beer, or you don't have a porter, you're missing a sour, for example. So they can sort of sit there and go, oh yeah, or this, or customer requests, they're a really good asset to have, and they should be listened to as well.
Yeah, so having been in their shoes, you have a bit more respect for the information they're bringing back.
And it can be really difficult sometimes, but the I guess the main point, just they customer facing. So if you're in the brewery all day or in the, like, we're lucky enough to have a tap room, you could go to the general manager at the tap room and go, what was selling this week? What's the favorite? What's the feedback? And that's the same with your sales guys or sales people. So
I will ask about London Fields' reputation, as it's kind of had a bit of a negative shadow on it for a little while because of a previous owner who got into some tax troubles. But the brand has been revived now that it's been purchased by Carlsberg and Brooklyn Brewery in a joint venture. They really have refreshed everything about it, creating this whole new brewery, this kit that you're working on, and the brand. Do you feel like you are playing a part in helping with that refresh and fixing the reputation? Is that something you think about in your day-to-day role?
Definitely. I mean, you just have to go in and see the brew kit as well that Taos kind of designed. It's
pretty epic.
Yeah, it starts there because, I mean, I wasn't there in the past, but from old photos and things, it wasn't the cleanest or anything like that. So, but it's completely. It's been completely gutted. It's got a brand new kit in. We've got a lot of new people. We actually tried to get a few more people back from the old days. I think we're just kind of focusing on the beer and just putting our heads down, and we had to weather the storm a bit because a lot of people are like, no, it's London Fields. And
yeah, they think about the old version. Yeah. And you're like, no, try the beers. Give us a chance.
In summer, we still got people like locals being like, oh, I used to buy your beer. I'm from the off license down the road. Like, are you going to sell it back to us? And we're like, oh, sure, no worries. It's a little bit different now.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to come see what we're up to now?
Yeah. So that's really nice. You kind of, I feel like we've weathered the storm, and it's, it's, from my perspective, I think it's kind of old news now. But I do understand that that's hurt a lot of people, and it changed a few laws from back in the day, and brewing laws in East London. And I understand it if people feel a bit of negative vibes against it, then
you know where they come from.
I understand where it comes from, and I understand, definitely. But
at the same time, you can just say, just come see us and chat with us. We're here, and we want to show you what we're doing now.
It's a completely different business. It's like a lot of different people, and it's just about the beer now. So.
Yeah, onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things I know is then being part of this bigger brewing family with Carlsberg and Brooklyn is you get to travel and do some really cool collaborations.
Yeah.
So there's breweries, like this one is this Norway? Easy Dolls is in Norway?
Easy Dolls, yeah.
And then breweries in Sweden and all kinds of places. So what have been some of your travel experiences as part of the role?
Norway, at the Strander and Porter Festival, this is one of the beers I got to present. We got to also recently in November or early December actually, we got to fly over and do a collaboration brew, and that was really wicked. It was because I've been to the other sister brewery in Sweden, just because of my birthday weekend. I just wanted to get out of London, and they looked after me. They gave me a tour. They fed us. I met some friends there, so we it's really nice. It's kind of, especially when you go over, you feel like you've got,
a family. It seems like, there's a lovely smile on your face, and like good memories and good people.
It's really good. Like, just to welcome you with open arms, and they take you everywhere, and you get to brew some beer, you get to check out their kit, you get to learn a lot as well.
Yeah, right. You can chat to them on a whole different level as well. Kind of being a beer drinker or being on the sales team, sadly, there may be that expectation that you couldn't communicate with them on the brewer level. And now that you are a brewer, you're like, show me the kit. What do you do differently?
I'm a lot more, like, I liked breweries before, but now I'm like, ooh, I really like that. Or, there's different...
just you can engage in a whole new way now. Yeah, that's quite cool. Well, should we open this beer?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So yes, this is an Imperial Baltic Porter aged in aquavit barrels.
Oh my goodness, wow. This is going to be interesting. I don't know actually what to expect from it. Is aquavit a bit licoricey?
Yeah, so...
like a bit of anise, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Most of the ones that I've had are very high ABV. and very herbal.
And what's this? Is that a dog on the front? Yeah.
Yeah, so this
What's the
is
story behind him?
This is worth googling actually. The artist who did this was Hakon Gullvåg. So this beer is actually called Gullvåg. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Everyone's gonna kill me, but
I'm terrible with accents, so don't worry.
the brewery actually hosted an exhibition with his work, and over in Brooklyn Brewery they did a similar event. So yeah, this is Garrett Oliver's. Well, Garrett from Brooklyn came over to Easy Dalles and brewed this, and yeah, it was with Hakon Gullvåg as well. So.
Wow. So again, that whole connection internationally, it sounds like a really cool world to be a part of.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this one to share as well.
Cheers.
That's delicious. I don't think I'm getting as much of a flavor from the liquor, but kind of that warmth. Something's kind of coming in the aftertaste where it is a little bit boozier, but loads of raisins and dark fruits, but it's really smooth. Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah. So you didn't.
12%.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's warm.
Yeah.
When I first had this, it was really quite strong. Like for me, the flavors have mellowed completely out. So, well, mellowed, but in a nice way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That with time, certain beers can get better with age. Not all beers, like you said, oxygen can make a lot of beers taste horrible, but particularly stronger beers can taste quite good with a little bit of time to chill. Speaking of this whole family and sort of how you're connected to the brewery, you're from Australia, and of course there were some terrible fires there, and you organized a fundraiser with London Fields to help out at home.
Everyone gives me a lot more credit than I'm due for that because.
Well, tell me a bit more about it.
So we had a beer in tank over Christmas that was conditioning. It was Tauf wanted to make around a 5% rice lager, and it conditioned for such a long time that it was really nice and crisp and clean. And him and Deepak, who works in our marketing area, Tauf and Deepak came up to me and were like, "Oh, we've got this beer. We want to sort of, should we dedicate it to the bushfire causes?" And I actually cried. I was like, oh my God. Because, my family were, they were on edge for a really long time. My brother's house got evacuated and they put the sprinklers on, and got a message from my sister-in-law, and she was like, we don't know if it's going to be there when we get back. So it was pretty horrible the first day back of January.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything's okay and everyone's safe. My friends and family are safe. But yeah, it was a pretty heavily affected area in East Gippsland. So I'm from the countryside. So I lived in Melbourne for almost 10 years, but
home is out there.
Yeah. And it's really not like everyone. Everyone knows me for the sales role and everything, but I'm like a bush pig. That's what everyone calls me.
You're a country girl at heart. Yeah.
I just learned how to,
act in the city.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So.
And how did the fundraiser go?
So it went really well. I think I can't remember. I bought some tickets as well. I'm not gonna lie, I drank a lot.
You did your part.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, so I'm for the koalas. Yeah. Yeah, they came up to me and they said they wanted to release this beer, and I cried, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna smash this around town. I'm gonna get on Instagram, and I'm gonna. And we had a lot of really good feedback, actually. A lot of people got in touch and they used that beer for their fundraisers. So it was
great. So it was a team effort as well. We'll recognize everybody for their contributions. No, it's a really nice idea.
It was really nice. Yeah, it was really good.
So talk to me about growing up in Australia. When you were a kid, what did you think you were going to do when you grew up? What led you to being a chef, and then what brought you to the UK?
I've never known what I wanted to do. Even when in high school, they're like, oh, you need to pick what you want to do for work experience. And I actually never did it. I got out of it somehow. I don't know how. But
just I can't decide. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I could go work at a vet. I like animals. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do. I was like, I'll decide when I want to. Kind of. I was a bit of a stubborn kid, So I went to science was my favorite subject. I really there was a lot of anatomy and physiology books, and I remember learning all the bones in the body when I was in primary school, and I just really liked science. So when I applied for university, I did a biological science degree, or I went for one anyway. I got into Deakin, which is a pretty good university in Melbourne. And I moved straight up after high school, and I actually couldn't afford to finish it because if you go straight out of high school, your parents are expected to pay for everything and rent and board. And it was the books that I had for one semester were like £500 and £700 dollars. So it was an expensive degree. So I couldn't actually finish it, and then I decided to drop out, and I moved back home to claim financial independence from my parents. So I worked in a pub as a waitress, and then 2 days a week I went into the kitchen. And I was like, oh, I really like this. And actually, when I was in Melbourne studying, I went to the markets. Like in the country town, we've got farmers markets and stuff, but the Queen Victoria market and the South Melbourne market were like huge and amazing, like array of food and a lot of diversity and a lot of different things like that you couldn't find in the country. So I spent a lot of my time cooking, and I was like, this is actually what I'm getting excited about. This is really cool. So when I moved back home, I was, as a waitress, I worked 2 days a week in the kitchen as a kitchen porter, so doing dishes and, you know, doing the salads, or like sometimes doing desserts. And I was like, okay, when I go back to Melbourne, I'm going to go to like chef school. I'm really interested in this. I'm going to do this. So there's ways that you can do it. So you can do an apprenticeship or anything, but I was like, I don't want to do that for 3 years. I want to just intense study and then get my diploma. And so I got my diploma of hospitality management and my chef qualifications up to a head chef level. So you do your HACCP and your OHS and all of that.
Some more health and safety.
Yes.
And just prepared you for the brewing world.
And then I worked as a chef in Melbourne for a good amount of years, and then I worked myself to the bone, and I got really sick, and I just got really sick. I became like a medical mystery. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what was wrong with me.
Oh my goodness, how scary. I have heard that chef hours are very antisocial and very troubling for a lot of people.
And I was relatively young. I was young at the time. I was like, this is not, like, for me, I was like, this is not worth it. Like, I'm killing myself over these hours and not getting like paid what I should do, being qualified and having experience. So I kind of left it, and I went to work at a cafe when I was studying. I worked in there for a bit, just doing coffee stuff. And then I moved, that's when I took the transition into bars, and I worked at a club that had a sister venue. So I worked at a few different clubs, and I was just bartending, and it was really good fun. It was a lot more social. I got paid a lot more, and I really enjoyed it. And then one of the security guards suggested, I was like, I don't want to do the late night clubs anymore. It was like till 3 and 4 a.m. So he suggested I work at this bar in Federation Square, and I worked there. I left and I got the job, and I worked there for about 6 months, and then I went traveling, and I came back and I worked for a bit more, and then I went traveling again. I moved to New Zealand for a year, and then when I came back for the last time, because they just, wanted to promote me, because they're like, oh, you're a good employee, and when you come back, like, stop leaving, we'll give you a promotion. And then I was promoted to bar manager, and I never wanted to do stock take or invoices, because I had to do that when I was managing a place in New Zealand, and I was like, this is long. I don't want to, computers.
Admin.
I'm not very good. Like, I'm missing the tech gene. Like, my brothers are really good at that, and I'm more in control. Yeah. So I was responsible for staff training and sort of maintaining the portfolio. So I was cleaning everything, everyone. I know that anyone would be like, yes, she was, If you're standing at the bar, you got to go clean something.
Oh yeah, what's the saying? If you've got time to lean,
yeah,
you've got time to clean.
It's true. So I did that for a bit, and I really enjoyed it. And then I went for a job at one of Melbourne's best craft beer bars at the time, the local tap house, and I got a job there, and it was less money than I was on at the time, but I really loved it. But again, I had a visa and everything with my partner at the time, and I was like, okay, I need to kind of choose money over love, like for the job at that time. And I stayed at that job. I got promoted, and I really enjoyed it. But then I had a year left on my UK visa. So I'm one of the lucky ones. I got a 5-year UK ancestry visa. And by that time I had a year left, and I was like, okay, I want to go over to London. Well, let's go do that.
Let's try it.
So I came over to London. I worked in a bar. I did not enjoy it. It's very different to Melbourne bars, London bars. But yeah, when after I was working in the bar, I found the job in Shoreditch, and I was a chef again. And I was like, felt this like weight lifted off me, and I was like, oh, I'm back in the kitchen. And it's a place that I enjoy. Like, and it was really nice to be sort of back in the kitchen. So I kind of did like a loop with bars, and then went back into the kitchen. And then from when most people know me over here is when I did the sales role, which was my left field. So
yeah, it is so funny because again, that's where I know you from, and I thought, oh, beer, yeah, that's been her thing. And then learning that you were a chef for all these years. What is it about beer that drew you in? Is it the flavors that you knew as a chef, that you can think about the recipe behind a beer, the flavors in a beer differently than a non-chef might?
I think of everything still as food. I'm like, even if we're thinking about making a new beer, I sort of sit there and I'm like, how would that play with food? And, you know, if you've got raisins or like roasted, and you could I kind of picture everything from a flavor perspective.
Yeah, right. Instead of thinking malt, water, hops, yeast, it's ultimately what is that going to taste like, and what is that going to interact with. So
my favorite thing is to sort of tell people is when you're home brewing, you can it's kind of like cooking in a kitchen, and you can sort of throw things around. You can get your basic sort of stuff, and you can substitute out, and you kind of just, it's more of a feel thing. And commercial brewing for me, I think, is more like baking. So you've got your recipe.
Everything's got to be precise and measured.
You've got your calculations and everything like that. And I was like, oh, I just kind of threw it in and see if it tasted bad or not,
And they're like, nope, that's not how we do it here.
Yeah. So
Were you ever much of a baker beforehand?
No,
I take it not.
Yeah,
you were a cook.
No, we had to do it as a part of our chef school, like as a subject, but yeah, I did not enjoy it. A lot of people actually like got into it, and they were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna switch like your certificate, like your degree or whatever. Yeah, I was like, no.
Yeah, you were happy on the path you were on.
Yeah.
And what was your initial exposure to beer? What got you into it? Was it that first pub job?
So mine was, I went to a lot of food festivals, especially when I was like first studying, when I moved to Melbourne. There's like little farmers markets or festival, like Fergus Henderson came over, and there was like events based around food, and there was always like one or two like foodie beer people in the corner. And actually it was a really long time ago. It's since become bigger and owned by bigger companies, but there was a White Rabbit dark ale in the corner, and these guys, it was their first beer that they released, and it was I think it was a 5.5% beer at the time. It was because a lot of the generic Australian beers are like the sparkling ones, and they're Melbourne Bitter and VB, and they serve their purpose.
Okay, so it's a certain customer who would drink those, but they're not interesting or exciting.
Like every time I go home, I always get like a long neck of Melbourne Bitter, and just have that flavor again. But
the taste of home.
Yeah,
it's not something you would tell somebody outside of Australia to try.
I think you should also experience it. Yeah, but I don't know. You might.
What's
really
the equivalent here?
Kind of a Stellar or something, but
yeah. So our
even though
Bud Miller Coors in the States,
yeah,
one of those, very accessible. And what led you to trade up then? It was those food experiences at the food festivals that you tried different beers.
Just knowing beer. Like I got into taste. I had dark beers that were my first like favorite type of like style. So the White Rabbit dark ale, I was like, wow. And then I started drinking porters and imperial stouts, and I was just like, this is amazing.
What's going on here? Yeah, so that porter and stout festival was the perfect place for you then.
Yeah,
if you like dark beers.
It was really good. Yeah, that was fun.
So what's your vision for your future brew pub that you're hoping to create? I take it there'll be great food and great beer, but a little more detail than that would be nice.
Well, that's the plan. Yeah, I just kind of want like a really nice open kitchen, a really big long bar. I want like a lot of shared tables, because I like big food. I like a lot of people. I like not even Christmas time, some weekends I miss cooking for everybody. But yeah, it needs to have like a really nice like function space because of the charity work that's gonna sort of go into it. I won't talk about it too much because I've got a name all planned out and I don't have anything painted. So
that's what you're working towards.
Yeah.
With a few more years of experience and different bits and bobs to get you there.
Yeah. It's good to be able to learn all the things that like even if I'm still like not learning how to brew like on the sophisticated kit, there's still so much to learn and absorb, and you can just be a sponge in every moment. So
All right, so that's a good time for my last question then. What do you enjoy most about being a part of the beer industry?
What do I enjoy most? I guess like it's just people, like having those experiences about sharing a beer. Like beer for me is something, I know a lot of people, that's their sun and they go around it. But for me, beer is always just something that a lot of, especially like working in craft beer, everyone was very snobby if I bought out like a 6-pack of Bud Light or something, something that is considered a shit beer or whatever. But it's not always about the beer. It's about the experiences that you have and the moments that you have. Because if you're at a concert and you're seeing this, like, yeah, it's really nice to drink a really nice beer that you're enjoying, but you're there with your friends and these moments don't really last forever. So it's about all the opportunities that beer can revolve around.
I like that. Yeah. That was very nicely said. Well, we've got plenty of beer to still drink, so thank you very much for all of your insights. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I look forward to, a few years from now, seeing your place that you create, wherever it may be.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks again for your time, Alex. I can't wait to come visit your brew pub someday. Come on back next week to hear from Becky Keane, co-founder of Nirvana Brewery. Chat soon.